What's up, everyone? It's Bones here. In today's video, I'll be featuring Codetalkers/Firewall, but before I begin, if you could happen to click on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons, it would be greatly appreciated, as it goes a long way in supporting the channel and shows me that you like content like this. Clicking on those notification bells would also mean a lot, as they notify you when I upload on the channel. So, I know that you may be wondering what the difference is seeing Defensor again, and the fact is that I'm not playing any Mathmech cards, and this is something that I've seen requested, where some people may not like the Mathmech stuff with the Firewall Defensor because it's kind of over-redundant. You can play hand traps and stuff, but we're going to go into our Splash Mage here as we'll trigger our Phantom, getting ourselves the Codec, and then from here we can activate the Codec so that we don't forget. We'll use the Splash Mage to get back the Phantom, and then we'll be able to go into our transcode, which will trigger the Codec, getting us a search for the generator. From here we can then use the transcode to bring back the Splash Mage, and then from here we'll be able to use the generator along with the Splash Mage to go into our Xcode. We'll trigger the generator, the codec, and then use the Xcode as we'll lock a zone, which really won't matter as we're just going to link it away anyways, getting ourselves the parallel exceed, sending the Dotscaper. The Dotscaper will revive itself with its effect as we'll then be able to go into Firewall. We'll trigger the parallel exceed as we'll then be able to get an extra body off of it, and then from here we're going to use the effect of Firewall to get back a monster as long as it's a Cyberse, but we're going to then go into our heart, use the effect of Firewall to bring out the Phantom, and then from here we can use the heart to get back the transcode, as we'll then go into our singularity, I believe. Yeah, we will go into the singularity, and there are a couple options that you can do, and I will go through each of the options as the video progresses, but we're going to start with the V-Link, as we'll be able to use the effect of singularity to bring back the Dotscaper, and then we can go into the Lingeribo. Now, the cool thing here is that we do get 2 draws. We lock our opponent's zones from Link summoning on the extra monster zone, meaning that they would have to go down here. We do have the ability to revive Firewall Dragon if we happen to use the Lingeribo, or either of these just get sent to the graveyard, giving you extra bounces, since with this current combo you wouldn't have any bounces off of the singularity since we don't have any Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, or Exceed monster that we control or in our graveyard. Now for the second combo, and this is another niche combo, the Wombo combos in this deck you really won't go for too often, as we're going to use the effects of the Salamangreat Link 1 chain blocking the Defensor in order to get our Phantom, and then we'll go into our Splash Mage as we'll use the effect of Phantom in order to get ourselves the Codec. As we pitch the Sanctuary, we'll use the Splash Mage in order to revive the Phantom, and then from here we can activate the Codec as we'll be able to go into our transcode, trigger the Codec, which will allow us to get the generator, and then from here we can go and use the transcode in order to bring back our Splash, as this will put us in a similar position to where we were last time, where we can go into our Xcode, trigger the generator along with the Codec, using the Xcode effect, locking a zone, which again doesn't matter, but we'll get ourselves the parallel exceed, get ourselves the Dotscaper, which will revive itself, and then from here we can go into our Firewall, as we'll then be able to trigger the parallel exceed. We'll use the Firewall in order to get back the Phantom, and then from here we'll be able to get some extra bodies as we're going to use the Exceeds effect, and then much like the last combo, we're going to go into our heart, trigger the Firewall, which will special summon out the Phantom. We'll use the heart to bring back the transcode, and now this is where things are going to change, as we're going to go into our singularity, and then we're going to go into our Protectcode talker. That will trigger the singularity, which will revive the Firewall, and we'll also be able to get a search off of Codex since the Protectcode is a dark monster, and this will effectively end our board here, as we'll have a bounce off the Firewall. Unfortunately, not have any bounces off the singularity, but we will have the protection from the Protectcode talker along with the Defensor, and we even have the capability of using the Phantom, which is something that I forgot to mention in the last combo as well. You can just banish the Phantom and get yourself back one of your Link monsters in order to have follow-up. I usually like to get the Splash Mage since it's the easiest one to make. Now continuing with some of the more niche combos, and we're going to start this one again with Defensor, as I'm going to go into the Salamangreat Link 1. We'll get ourselves the Defensor effect along with the Salamangreat add, as we'll get our Phantom, and then from here we can go into our Splash. We'll use the effect of the Phantom in order to get ourselves Codec, pitch the Sanctuary as we'll activate the Codec so we don't forget, use the effect of the Splash Mage to bring back the Phantom, and then we'll go into our transcode as we'll trigger the Codec and get ourselves the generator, as we're then going to be able to use the transcode, get back the Splash Mage, and now we can go into our Xcode with the generator along with the Splash Mage. We'll trigger the Codec along with the generator, then use the effect of the Exceed, which again doesn't matter for the third time, but we'll get ourselves the Exceed, then send the Dotscaper to our graveyard, revive the Dotscaper off its effect, as we'll then go into our Firewall, Firewall. We'll then trigger the Parallel Exceed in our hand as we'll get ourselves an extra body off of it. And then from here, we'll be able to go into our Neo Tempest. And the cool thing about this is that now not only do we have a bounce, but because Neo Tempest has the ability to send a card from our extra deck or deck to the graveyard on either player's turn, gain an additional attribute off of it, we're going to do just that, as we're going to send ourselves the Deceive Worm, and this will give us a spell and trap negate on our opponent's turn so that they can't happen to evenly this or whatever. And I just thought that this is a cute way of going second, and this is what I mean by a more niche combo, because you may not combo as hard in some scenarios going second. There may be some better options that you can do, but I do think that being able to get the Tempest plus the Deceive Worm going second is pretty cute, as you're able to get the attacks off. It gains an extra 2500 attack, which makes the Firewall plus the Tempest a total of 8000 damage, as you'll see here, as we're going to use the Phantom as well, and this can get us back a Splash Mage. Now for this next combo, and this is more about deck building, as I said, I wasn't playing the Math Mech stuff in this particular build because I wanted to keep that stuff out for the people who want it that way, and we're going to start this one with Cyberse Gadget, and this is effectively what we've replaced the Circular with, so we'll be able to use the effect of the Gadget and the Bale, and then from here we'll be able to get a token on board, and this will allow us to get us into the Splash. From here we can use the Splash Mage effect to bring back the Gadget, and this just becomes a one-card Heat Soul, which is essentially what I wanted, because if we weren't going to play the Circular and the other Math Mech stuff, we at least needed a one-card starter that could get us to the minimum that we wanted. Now, going back to the Defensor combos, and I'm going to start with the more streamlined plays, the ones that you may go more often, and we're going to start this one by using the Defensor effect along with the Bale, as we'll be able to get ourselves the Fountain and the Sanctuary, as we're going to go into our Splash Mage, trigger the Phantom. This will get us the CYAC Conflict, and then from here we'll pitch the Sanctuary, use the effect of the Splash in order to bring back the Phantom, go into our Heat Soul. We'll then be able to use the Phantom as we set the Conflict, and now we'll have an Omni Negate along with the 2 draws off of Heat Soul. As you see, we're just going to get any random card here. I have the deck non-shuffled, so whatever you get is whatever you get, but it's just what you do off of one card, and probably the safest play that you'll be going for more often. Back to another Defensor combo, and this one will start with Defensor, obviously, as we're going to go into our Salamangreat Link 1, trigger the Defensor along with the Link 1, as we'll get ourselves a Sanctuary and the Phantom on board, as we're then going to go into the Splash Mage. The Phantom can then get ourselves the Codec, as we'll be able to pitch the Sanctuary. We'll activate the Codec now so that we don't forget, and then we'll use the Splash Mage in order to get back the Phantom, and then we're going to go into our Transcode, use the effect of Codec in order to get ourselves the Generator, and then from here we can use the Transcode to bring back the Splash Mage, as now we're going to go into our Heat Soul, and then from here we can use the Generator in order to send the Dotscaper, and then from here we can bring back the Dotscaper, go into our Firewall, and this will give us another combo that you can go for if you would like to with Defensor, that gives you a bounce plus the 2 draws. Now for this next combo, and again we'll be starting with Defensor, as we're going to go into Salamangreat Bale, use the effect of Defensor along with the Bale. We'll then get ourselves the Sanctuary along with the Phantom, as we'll then go into the Splash Mage, use the effect of Phantom, which will net us a search for the Codec. We'll then pitch the Sanctuary, activate the Codec so that we don't forget, use the effect of Splash Mage bringing back the Phantom, and then from here we can go into the Transcode, as we'll trigger the Codec, getting ourselves the Generator, and then from here we can use the Transcode to bring back the Splash Mage, and then from here we'll go into our Xcode, I believe. No, we'll go into the Protectcode, as we'll trigger the Generator along with the Codec, and then we'll get ourselves the Iblee and send ourselves the Dotscaper. From here we'll revive the Dotscaper, and then from here we can go into our Firewall, use the Protectcode, and this will just give us 2 bounces. We'll also be able to protect our Firewall via the Defensor and the Protectcode Talker, and then of course we also have the Phantom to put something from our graveyard back into our deck. Now for the millionth Defensor combo, as we're going to normal summon it, we'll go into our Bale, then use the effect of the Defensor, as we'll trigger the Bale as well, getting ourselves the Field Spell, use the Defensor to get the Guardian this time, and then from here we're going to go into our Splash Mage, trigger the Guardian, which will revive itself. Then from here we can go into our our Lingeribo, as we're going to use the Splash Mage in order to bring back the Defensor, and now we're going to go into Heat Soul, which is another one of the more basic combos that you may go for when playing in an actual match. Now, this is a second iteration of a combo that you really may go for in real matches, as we're going to trigger the Defensor and the Bale here, get ourselves the Sanctuary as we're going to bring out the Guardian, and then from here we can go into our Splash Mage, trigger the Guardian, and then from here we'll be able to use the Splash Mage, as we're then going to go into our Transcode, and then use the effect of Transcode to bring back the Splash Mage, and then from here you either go into your Heat Soul. Now, I'm finally going to get onto the 2-card combos where we do have any Cyberse plus Parallel Exceed, and the way we're going to play this is by normal summoning the Iblee. We'll then be able to use the Iblee along with the Bale, and keep in mind, if it's not Iblee, then you're obviously not using the Iblee, but you're going to be able to trigger your Parallel Exceed either ways, and then from here we'll be able to get the extra bodies along with the Search, as we're going to summon the Iblee on our opponent's board, trigger the Parallel Exceed, as we'll be able to get the extra body, go into the Splash Mage, use the Splash Mage to bring back Parallel Exceed, and then from here we can go into our Heat Soul, as we'll then go into our Lingeribo, giving us the first iteration of this board. Now, I want to show how you can take a different approach with it, where we're going to normal summon the Iblee, go into our Bale, trigger the Iblee along with the Bale and the Parallel Exceed, getting us the extra bodies along with the Iblee on our opponent's board, as we're then going to use the effect of the Exceed to get ourselves the extra body, and then from here we'll go into our Splash Mage, use the effect of Splash Mage to bring back the Parallel. We'll then be able to go into our Transcode, use the effect of Transcode to get back the Splash Mage, and then from here we're going to go into our Heat Soul to round out our end board. Now, for Defensor plus Parallel Exceed, and this is one of the ones where you can kind of combo a little bit harder if you do have these, but we're going to get the Defensor along with the Bale and the Parallel Exceed, so this will give us 2 extra bodies, as we also do get an extra body off the Parallel. We're going to get the Guardian, which will be an additional body on top of that, as we're going to go into the Splash Mage, revive the Guardian off of its effect, and then from here we can use the Splash Mage to bring back the Defensor, as we're then going to go into our Transcode, use the effect of Transcode to bring back the Splash Mage, and then from here we can go into our Heart, as we're going to use the Heart to bring back the Transcode, and then from here we can go into our Singularity, I believe. No, we're going to go into the Protectcode. I don't know what I meant by Singularity, as we're going to go into the Firewall, then use the effect of the Protectcode to bring back the Protectcode and give us 2 link arrows pointing to Firewall, so that we can have a pair of bounces, and we'll be able to also activate the Sanctuary in case you happen to have given your opponent an Iblee or something within the combo. The point of Sanctuary is just so that if they do attack with the Iblee, you can change whatever they attack with into 0 for the Salamangreat Sanctuary to keep the Iblee lock live. Now, for this next one, we're coming full circle here, where we have the Cyberse Gadget along with the Parallel Exceed, and we're going to start this one by normal summoning the Gadget, go into our Bale, as we'll then be able to trigger the Gadget as well, use the Exceed from our hand, as we'll be able to get an extra body off that, and we'll be able to get a token along with the extra body of the Exceed over here, which will then be able to do something similar for us as before, which is go into our Splash Mage, revive the Gadget, and now we have access to some of the more similar stuff that you saw before. You could have gone into Heat Soul here, where you could then go into your Lingeribo if you had an extra body on board. You can definitely take different approaches to this, like Alan Bershin if you play that, but I'm just going to take this upon the way that the deck is built, and we're going to revive the Splash Mage here, go into our Protectcode, as we're going to go into our Firewall, revive the Protectcode with its effect, and then from here we can just activate the Sanctuary, as this will round out our end board. Now, with all of the combos out of the way, we can finally get onto the test hands, and this is the more awkward hand, which it really isn't, because we do have the Parallel Exceed, and you saw what you could do with any Cyberse monster, so we're going to start this one by normal summoning the Iblee. We'll then be able to use the effect of the Iblee along with the Bale and the Parallel Exceed, as we'll be able to get ourselves some extra bodies here, as we're then going to use the effect of the Exceed in order to bring out another copy of itself, change it to level 4, as we're going to go into the Splash Mage, use the Splash Mage to bring back the Parallel, and then from here you can go into your Transcode, where you can use the Transcode effect in order to bring back the Splash Mage, and then from here we'll be able to go into the Protectcode with our generator, and this will trigger the generator, which will allow us to send the Dotscaper, and the Dotscaper will trigger, which will give us an extra body. From here we'll go into our Heart, as we can use the Heart's effect in order to bring back the Transcode, and then we'll go into our Firewall Dragon here, as we're going to use the Protectcode in order to revive itself, and from here we can just activate the Salamangreat Sanctuary, giving us our end board, while also being able to Iblee lock our opponent pretty early so they aren't even able to nib us. Now, for for the final combo. And if you've seen in these first two hands, they're actually kind of just 3-card combos since we drew talents plus a hand trap in both. And you'll see that we actually do have a lot of space in order to go second with this deck, which is kind of nice. But if there's one thing that you've probably noticed by now is the fact that you are normal summoning in order to get your things going. If your opponent removes your normal summon, then you really can't play from there, and that's where the circular is really clutch. So if you're playing this deck without the math mech stuff, that is a weakness that you definitely have, where it's similar to Prank Kids, where if they just banish or whatever your normal summon, then you kind of just pass. So we're going to use the codec here in order to get ourselves the generator, and then from here we can use the transcode to bring back the Splash Mage. From here we'll be able to use the Splash Mage and the generator to go into our Protectcode, triggering our codec and our generator. And I've been interchanging the codec and generator chain links, and I want you to keep in mind that Ogre is more popular right now, so you may want to protect yourself from Ogre in more instances, where in some of the plays where I went for Xcode, you may want to use Xcode as chain link 2 or chain link 1, while putting your generator as chain link 3 so that you can't get ogred. Those are just things definitely worth mentioning and worth keeping an eye on depending on the format. So we'll get ourselves the Guardian here, as we're going to get the Dotscaper, go into our Firewall, as we're then going to go into our Heart. We'll be able to trigger the Firewall, bringing out the Guardian, and then from here we can use the Heart in order to bring back the Transcode. Now from here we'll be able to go into our Singularity. Guardian will be able to trigger reviving itself, and from here we can go into our Lingeribo, as we'll also be able to use the Protectcode here, bringing it back. And now there's a couple of things that we can do, where you'll see that we can just set the CYAC conflict and pass on this, or we can even go into our Heat Soul, which is still a B-link, and we still have everything co-linked to the Singularity, as this would also be able to trigger the Singularity to give us back the Firewall, giving us a slightly different variation of the end board seen previously, but you still have options to do stuff like this, which is definitely pretty cool. So rounding out our end board, we would be able to get the 2 draws off of Heat Soul. We also have the Omni Negate off of the CYAC conflict. We have the Trap Negate off of Lingeribo, and this would also get a revive off of Singularity if we use the Lingeribo tributing itself. And then we of course have the Firewall bounces, with the added protection of the Protect Codetalker and whatever else you may have in hand. So with all of the combos out of the way, we can finally get onto the deck profile, and the first things that you may see here are the Math Mech along with the adventure stuff, and this is to protect yourself from normal summon equals death if your opponent happens to have an out to your normal summon, where your circular can just be an extender that still lets you combo, while your adventure stuff allows you to give you a negation so that they can't hit you that way, especially considering that in the combos I showed, you actually don't need any of your normal summon effects in order to get where you want to go. The Cyberse Gadget can be nice, but in most cases, you're not really using its effect turn 1 unless you happen to CYAC mining something that you can actually revive off of it. That just feels like a more niche scenario, considering that you do see that everything that is in Parallel Exceed, a Cyberse Gadget, or Firewall Defensor is a one-of that also isn't Called by the Grave or the hand traps and stuff, which are obvious 3-ofs. And you'll also see that we do have 12 hand traps here, plus the 3 talents and the Called by, which is just a lot of space to play, and I feel like that's one strength the deck definitely has, especially when you consider that 3 Small World plus 3 CYAC mining almost guarantees that you'll really get combo when you consider that you have 3 more Defensor along with 3 gadgets. But as long as you're really seeing one of these so that you can at least get into your Heat Soul, and having all of this stuff to back it up is definitely pretty nice. You'll see that in the extra deck it is pretty tight, and I feel like if you were to bring in the Math Mech engine into the deck, where you would maybe take out the Cyberse Gadgets along with Called by the Grave and put in 3 circular along with Sigma or something, then you would be able to take out something like the Terahertz or maybe even the Dark Fluid in order to bring Alan Burschen into the deck. It just kind of depends on how you want to build it. I do think that keeping stuff like the Xcode is kind of important if you are playing CYAC codec. I would also like to point out that I did think of cutting the Firewall Phantom package, and it was because you could search out CYAC spell traps with microcoder anyways, but at the same time being able to get a freer search for the codec or the CYAC conflict off of the Phantom, which you do with Defensor, felt pretty valuable in order to make this deck more consistent in getting its full combo, in my opinion, and allowing you to play through more stuff. Other things that you may see here is the no Wicked, and I've mentioned before, I just don't think that we need Wicked anymore, especially in the Firewall build. The Inverted and the Code Talker are definitely options that you can play because they are Code Talker names. It allows you to use your microcoder easier, and you see that's why I only play one of it where we don't have any of the Code Talker linked to, so you just really want to search it and then be able to link it away from your hand and get its effect, just get your one-time use off of it. The Firewall circuit, or the CYAC circuit, didn't end up wanting to use. This is something that you could technically side, but because you have the ability to bring out Iblee pretty easily onto your opponent's board, whether it be normal summoning it after you search it off with CYAC mining, or even taking it out off the Firewall effect and then linking it away. You saw with the terahertz combo, there's just different ways to play around like evenly that don't have to pay an extra card like this along with reviving stuff onto your opponent's board. So while cute, it's not necessary in my opinion. But outside of that, I don't think I have much else to say, as I do think I showed everything else in the combo. So I'll just get on to the card by card here, where we have the 3 Defensor, the 3 Cyberse Gadget, the 3 Parallel Exceed, the 1 Guardian, 1 Phantom, 1 Conflict, the 3 Talents, the 1 Microcoder, the 1 Code Generator, the Dotscaper, the Iblee, the Sanctuary, the 3 Small World, the 3 CYAC Mining Codec. We then have the Santa Claus, the 3 Ghost Ogre, the 3 Ash, the 3 Drolls, the 1 Deceive Worm in the extra deck, the 1 Salamangreat Bale, the 1 Lingeribo, the 1 Splash Mage, the 1 Heart, 1 Update Jammer, the 1 Xcode, the 1 Transcode, the 1 Heat Soul, the 1 Protectcode, the 1 Access Code, the 1 Firewall, the 1 Tempest, the 1 Dark Fluid, and the 1 Singularity to round out the deck profile. Anyways, if you made it this far into the video, I thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them down below. It's Bones, signing out.